right. So I think we're ready to go here. Well, I'm sure there'll be a couple of other people that will join here in just a few minutes. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on employment grant opportunities with Perimeter83. For those of you that aren't familiar with Perimeter83, it is a co-working and training space located on the University of Advancing Technology campus in Tempe. We do offer some certificate programs and some corporate professional training. So if you need more information about that, you can visit our website at perimeter83.com. And this morning, I'd like to welcome our guest today, Mr. Bryant Colman, Managing Principal with Economic Incentives Advisory Group. He is going to be delivering the presentation today on some grant and training opportunities that are available for businesses. So thank you for joining us today, Mr. Colman, and I will turn it over to you.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll definitely keep the presentation brief. I've always found out that when we can go through the material relatively quickly, I'd like to get into the questions and answers, and that seems to be when most people can grasp the various programs. So the purpose of the presentation today is to make you aware of the various state programs that are available to businesses, as well as some programs available at the local level. Some of the programs that we're going to discuss today are the state's direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic and what the state is going to be doing to try to help businesses through this period. And then there's going to be some other programs that have been in place for anywhere from 5 years to 18 years that are still in place. So we'll cover the programs and at the end go through a Q&A. Lisa, if you could go to the next slide. By way of background, we wanted to provide you just a little bit of information about our firm. We've been in operation for over 18 years. We're a national firm, although we are headquartered here in Phoenix. During that period of time, we've helped companies secure about $700 million in government funds. And that, when I talk about the word funds, excuse me, that's in the form of cash grants, tax credits, and other business incentives. So what we do is we help companies identify the programs, we help them apply, and then we help them administer the programs over the life cycle. And these grant programs can range anywhere from 1 year up to 10 years. Next slide. So we're going to talk about there are different types of ways that the government will provide incentives. There are what they call just a traditional tax credit, where you can reduce your tax liability on a dollar-for-dollar basis if you're awarded these credits. There's what's called a refundable credit, which is very attractive because if a company has very little tax liability or no tax liability, the state will actually issue a check. If the incentive or the credit is larger than what the company's tax liability is, the state issues a check, and that's what a refundable credit means. It's basically cash. The next grouping is what we call grants. A grant is just a cash check from the state or the city. And then finally, exemptions. Certain industries will qualify and you will not be required to pay sales tax if you're for certain purchases, and that's an exemption. So these are the traditional incentive programs. There are others, but these are the ones that we're going to focus on today. Next one. The first program we're going to discuss is one where timing is going to be very important. The state wants to assist companies in helping them create jobs. So this one is a grant. Once again, a grant being that the applicant will receive cash if they qualify. There's going to be some very key time periods in this program. March 1 becomes what the state calls a baseline date. So if I were taking notes in this presentation, I would say, okay, let's look at March 1. What was the company's headcount that day? And then what the state's going to do is they're going to allow you to look out through to September 1 of 2020. And if you're going to create a position within your company where the employee is going to be a W-2 wage earner, then you can apply for $5,000 times the number of jobs that you're going to create. The maximum award per applicant is $1.3 million. Something to reference about this particular program, that employee that is hired to qualify must also receive some general type of job training. And that training can be very broad. So number one, they have to be a new position to the company. So if the company starts with 10 employees and they grow up to 20 employees between that period of time, then they're going to be eligible for $5,000 per employee, and they must also receive training. So this is called the Rapid Employment Training Grant in response to COVID-19. Next slide. Now we're going to switch a little bit here and go through some of the programs that have been in place at the state for a number of years. This particular program is called the Arizona Qualified Facilities Program. It is for the manufacturing industry. So the manufacturing needs to take place here in Arizona. Or if the company is headquartered in Arizona, and this is a very important distinction, the company can be headquartered in Arizona, but the manufacturing can take place in another country or another state as long as the headquarters is here in Arizona. This program will provide the manufacturing company $20,000 for every job created in the state, and there's no cap, or 10% of their capital investment. Capital investment being the purchase of equipment, machinery, refurbishing a building, the purchase of a building. So what's going to happen here is the state's going to weigh the two. What's going to be the lesser of the two? Is it going to be the $20,000 for every job created, or 10% of the capital investment? And they're going to provide that. And this is what we call that refundable credit, meaning that it's cash if the credit exceeds the, whichever one of the two is less, the $20,000 per net new job or 10% of the capital investment. Now, what's important to know with this particular program is this is one of the few programs remaining in the country that has what's called a look back. A look back means that you can look at qualifying business activity for the past 3 years. So you can look back 3 years and qualify those hires and that capital investment. You can also have a separate application if the client is going to grow in headcount from this point forward. So you're permitted to have 2 applications open, one for prior year activity and one for future activity. Only for the manufacturing industry. Next slide, please. We wanted to give you an example of some companies that have recently benefited from this program. And as you can see that the sizes of companies vary. Pilgrim Screw being a smaller company, receiving $35,000, all the way up to Raytheon that received $24 million. So we wanted to provide some real life examples of companies that have benefited from this. Next slide. This is just more of a process slide on how we execute through the process. We get a pre-approval, we execute. There's what's called a post-approval. And when a company is awarded, the state's going to provide this benefit to the employer over a period of 5 years. So whatever the benefit is, the state's going to provide that benefit to you over 5 equal installments over the next 5 years. Next slide, please. Here's something funny. When I first got into this industry, all these programs sounded alike, and I wish that the states across the country would just make them sound a little bit different. This program sounds similar, but this one is called the Quality Jobs Tax Credit. The previous program was called the Qualified Facilities Credit. The Quality Jobs Tax Credit is available to non-manufacturing as well as manufacturing. And this particular program also permits a look back, but it doesn't allow you to look back 3 years. You're able to look back 1 year. There is a requirement that you need to create at least 25 what they call net new jobs to the company. And this is a very key definition when we talk about net new. Net new meaning that they're additions in headcount. So several years ago, we applied for a company and they said, well, we hire 200 people. But what they were really talking about is they were hiring 200 people to maintain that same headcount. They just had high turnover. In these particular programs, we can't look at it that way. We have to look at actual net growth in a company. So in this program, if a company creates 25 net new jobs within a 12-month period and also has a minimum of a $500,000 CapEx, CapEx once again could be lease payment, purchase of software, laptops, monitors, tenant improvements, purchase of a building. And if you make at least a $500,000 capital investment in the same period of time that the 25 new jobs are created, you're eligible for this program. This is a pure tax credit, meaning that this is a dollar-for-dollar credit applied against state income tax. And that benefit is up to $9,000 for every net new job created. In this example, we demonstrated 25 net new jobs times $9,000 is a $225,000 benefit. If a company can't use that full $225,000, the state does permit a 5-year carry forward, meaning that you can carry these credits forward and apply them towards future tax liability. Next slide. Just a little bit about the program. I won't get into too much detail here, but they do need to be full-time jobs, be Arizona residents. Next slide. Some examples of companies that have recently benefited from the program. And you don't have to be a particular size company. It's as long as you meet those growth job creation requirements. Next slide. This program has been in place for 18 years. The state will start accepting applications in October. And we've had great success with this program, probably representing about 60% of the companies that have applied during that period of time, during that 18-year period. Similar to the Rapid Employment Grant, the benefit will be up to $5,000 for net new jobs created from October of 2020 through December 31 of 2021. So net growth between October of this year and December 31 of next year. You'll receive up to $5,000 per employee. And once again, there's programs a little different than the Rapid Employment Grant where it's a job training reimbursement program. And for those that are interested, we can kind of walk through what the state will cover with this particular program that's different than the Rapid Employment Grant. But once again, it's up to $1.3 million per applicant. It's a competitive program. And where the Rapid Employment Grant, that's the state's response to COVID-19, there is no wage requirement that needs to be met for that program. With this particular program, if you're a business of 100 or fewer, you would need to pay roughly $30,000 to an employee to qualify for the program. And if you're a business of 100 or more, then they would need to make $38,000 a year or more in order to receive that $5,000 per hire. Next slide. Here's a little bit of the formula. If you look at the middle of the screen there, you'll see for a business of 100 or more, the benefit is $5,000 per employee. If you're a business of 100 or 99 or fewer, it's $8,000 per employee. So you can see that there's a little bit of an additional benefit for companies that have 100 or fewer employees. Next slide. Couple of awards that were recently provided to companies, and you can see that these are pretty substantial dollars being awarded. Once again, this one is a cash grant, not a tax credit. Next slide. The City of Phoenix has a program, and you are permitted to participate in all these programs. So it's not like you can qualify for one program and be excluded from participating in the others. You are permitted to apply in all of those. And you are, once again, you can apply for these on your own. One of the things, if you work with a firm like ours or someone similar to ours, part of their job will be to help you apply for all programs and make sure that you're capitalizing on all of them. The City of Phoenix grant is specific to businesses that are located within Phoenix proper. Net growth is not required for this program, meaning that you don't have to hire new employees to qualify. It's up to $50,000 per year, and you could continue to apply year over year. You just have to have your main office or facility be located within Phoenix proper. And this program will pay for outside vendor training. So if you use an outside vendor like a Sandler Sales Training or Dale Carnegie or some type of a leadership related training, and you pay an outside vendor, that's what this reimburses for. Next slide. Almost done here. The research and development credit. This is an excellent program for companies that are involved in developing a technology, an app, a process, a system, software, also for manufacturing companies. This is a two-part program. There's the R&D credit at the state level. And at the state level, you can receive a $100,000 refundable credit. You must apply by January 1 of 2021. And then literally that day, the state runs out of funds, so the application has to be ready. And then this is also a federal program, which is a tax credit applied against federal income tax liability. There's what the program guidelines call them qualified expenses. And we have a specialist within our organization that does nothing but this particular program. Some of the qualified expenses that you can include are the costs of developing a technology, so software engineers, or if any of the owners are involved in the development of the technology product system or any type of solution, you can include their salaries. If you use an outside vendor to help develop your technology, as long as they're US based, then those expenses qualify. And when you start developing your qualified expenses, that's what you're going to be able to claim this benefit for. You are permitted to look back 3 years. Next slide. Other Arizona programs for manufacturing companies. When a manufacturing company purchases equipment that is directly related to their manufacturing activity, you're exempt from paying state sales tax. And what we do is we generate a certificate, and that certificate then is provided to any vendors that a manufacturer may make purchases from, and that exempts them from paying state sales tax. Also, those other companies that are in manufacturing that may purchase pollution control equipment, such as any type of air, water, or filtration systems. So any purchases that are made that protect the environment, you would receive a 10% credit, state tax credit for the cost of those equipment purchases, and it's capped at $500,000 benefit per applicant for the purchase of any pollution control equipment. And typically that's manufacturing companies that qualify. Next slide. So, real quick about our firm, we assist companies with tax credit programs, training grants. There's what's called negotiated incentives. That's when a company's looking to expand and they're considering multiple cities or multiple states for expansion. The members of our team, we have people that came from the Big Four. We have several CPAs and attorneys, corporate real estate, some technology professionals, and people that have economic development backgrounds. So we've had a lot of success at working across, our clients range in size from, Siemens on the large end to smaller regional companies and even companies that have as few as 20 employees. Next slide. One of the things that we provide our clients, it's very helpful. It actually helps the client and it also helps us, is we provide an initial assessment at no cost. And what we do in that initial assessment is we understand the business, how many employees, industry type, and then we come back with a very simple report, but it's very easy to follow. And what that allows you to do is, are there any incentives available to the company? And at that point, you can determine if the dollar amount and the administrative investment is worth pursuing. But it gives you a quick snapshot of what's available to you and does it make sense to move forward. In the event that you do want to move forward, you could either apply directly with these state or local agencies. We always want to make companies aware that you don't have to use a firm like ours, but we do make it easier. We assist with the application preparation. And really the most important part of the service that we provide is what we call compliance. That's where we assist in meeting all the reporting requirements, so you're actually receiving the checks from the state or the city or able to claim the credits on your tax returns. So the compliance is what makes our firm, very strong and a great partner, because you don't have to assign somebody from your company to manage all the administration. Next slide. And then this is just contact information. So yeah, Lisa, I have to thank you for, coordinating this, and Jacy, thank you for having us. We definitely want to answer any questions, and please feel free to forward this presentation to the group in attendance. We'd like to help if you believe there's a need.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the presentation. And this presentation is being recorded, and we will supply the recording and the slides to all the attendees afterwards. Please feel free to share it out to anyone that this might be assistance to. But yes, if you have any questions, definitely please submit them either in the chat box or in the Q&A, and we can get started with the Q&A session. So. And it's down there at the bottom. If you're using the Zoom desktop client, there should be a section under chat and Q&A that you should be able to click on to submit questions.
Jacy, I think it was such a good presentation that there's no questions.
It was, definitely. It was very helpful. It's really great information, and I'm really glad to see organizations like yours that can help the difficult part of working through these grant programs, especially those that are not familiar with working with the compliance side of things. So people can definitely venture out to the websites and apply, but from the compliance side, I suggest having someone that can help you with that. So, all right, we've got one question here from Steve. If you are out of work and trying to get landed but need training, can you go with individuals about these grants?
Oh, that's a great, so going to answer your question on that, so Jacy, I'm not too familiar. Is it better, can I just verbalize it versus?
Yeah, definitely.
So there are some workforce programs. I would recommend looking at the Arizona Commerce Authority website, and I think that's a great resource. We partner a lot with the Arizona Commerce Authority, but that's a great resource where you could go and get training, and they have career centers, but that's something that our firm does not get involved with. We assist with the application of the programs and the administration of the programs. So I would recommend looking at the Arizona Commerce Authority website for that.
Perfect. And Steve, I can send you some information about some of those programs and opportunities. All right, we got another question from Debbie. If your company has a majority of part-time employees, are some of these grants available?
So I have to ask a question around that, is that, Lisa, and I think that and I have to go back and look at the ruling for the rapid employment grant, but I can't remember if it's 30 hours per week is what I believe is required.
I believe that's correct, Bryant.
Yeah, so if they're at least 30 hours per week, you could qualify for the Rapid Employment Grant. On the other programs, unfortunately, if it's less than 30 hours per week, then you may not be eligible for many of the programs that we discussed this morning. But the Rapid Employment Grant, which is for the the state's COVID-19 response, I believe it's a minimum of 30 hours per week in order to receive that $5,000 per net new hire.
Okay, perfect. And another question from Debbie. Are some of your funds from the ACA as well?
Yes. So most of the programs that we discussed this morning are from the Arizona Commerce Authority, with the exception of the City of Phoenix program. The City of Phoenix program is funded through a federal group. The funds are provided to the City of Phoenix, and the City of Phoenix, in essence, becomes the administrator. And that's that grant that's up to $50,000 per applicant if you have a office or facility within Phoenix proper.
Perfect. All right. Debbie said, okay, so on the Rapid Employment Grant, the 30 hours a week is cool. Many of our part-time employees have been with us 2 or 3 years. What are the next steps to talk with you?
So in that last slide, you have the emails. So I would recommend reaching out to myself or Lisa Pritchard to discuss that program. And please keep in mind, these are hires from net new hires. Remember, I kept on kind of going back to that point. The Rapid Employment Grant is for net new hires from March 1 through to September 1 of this year. So you would have to show an increase in headcount between that time frame.
Okay, perfect. And I will definitely send follow-up information. Again, the presentation was recorded, and I do have a copy of the slides that I can email out to all of the attendees. Are there any other questions from the audience? I don't think we have any more questions. Debbie said thank you. It was very helpful. So thank you for being here. Okay, perfect. So with that, I will briefly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the offerings from Perimeter83. Really quick, I know that we talked a lot about training today, and I just wanted to make everyone aware some of the things that Perimeter83 can handle are some of the training stuff on the technology side of things. So if you're looking for that outside vendor to handle any technology training, leadership, blockchain, some of the stuff, app development is a very popular program. We do have professional certificate programs. It's 3 7.5-week courses that we offer to complete those certificates. And in addition, we can pull any of the curriculum from our catalog to develop custom training courses for businesses. So again, these are just some of the samples. UAT does offer associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree programs. And then just recently we launched the certificate training program. So the next group of classes starts the beginning of September. So if you're interested in learning more about that, just let me know. And we can also do a single standalone class as well. So for example, a lot of people are very interested in cybersecurity. So if you need to reskill or upskill or offskill any of your employees and move them to other positions, those are things that we can also help with as well. So just some quick information about Perimeter83. Again, you'll receive an email from me with information if you ever have any questions about anything that we offer through the university. Definitely please feel free to reach out. So there's that. And Lisa, did you have any other information or anything that you would like to share to the attendees?
Sure. Let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to just share my screen real quick.
Of course.
Okay, let me go back here. So in addition to working with Bryant at EIAG, I also work with Bullock Training and Development, which is a Sandler Training Center here in Tempe. For those of you that aren't familiar with Sandler, we are typically known for our sales management and leadership development programs. And we have over 230 training centers across the globe. And on an annual basis, we typically train over 30,000 people a year. Our core competency is sales training, and the average salesperson hasn't gone through any professional training. Typically, only 50% of them ever reach their goals on an annual basis. When you compare that to Sandler trained clients, over 88% of our salespeople reach their sales goals and have stated that our Sandler training has helped them improve their sales process. You take that a step further, and when you poll our clients, 96% of them say that they would recommend Sandler to any other sales professional out there. So what I wanted to just briefly talk about now is the type of companies we help. We work with business owners and leaders across all industries, not only manufacturing, technology, financial services. And what these companies have in common is they have a desire to really elevate the sales performance and results of their sales team, not only in the short term, but in the long term, really creating long-term behavior change. Typically, these companies are concerned, especially in today's environment, that the prospecting methods they currently use aren't really effective in today's work from home, remote business environment due to the COVID-19 situation. Other companies we work with tell us that they're really frustrated by the amount of free consulting their salespeople do on a regular basis, only to have that information used to shop competitors. And then others tell us that they're seeing their sales cycle getting longer and longer, and their sales reps just aren't reaching the decision makers fast enough or quick enough in the sales cycle. So what we do is we really work with these companies to refine their sales process and specifically look at how they qualify and, more importantly, disqualify prospects. We work with them on how to reach the decision makers faster in the earlier sales process and ultimately increase their sales performance to deliver the results they need. So what I wanted to really do is just take a couple of minutes to tell you about some upcoming events we have scheduled for the month of July. The first one is a free event. It's a virtual seminar. It's called Why Salespeople Fail and What You Can Do About It. This session is really perfect for sales managers, sales leaders, as well as salespeople to really understand what are the common mistakes we make as salespeople and what you can do to become more effective. If some of you have sales in your pipeline that have stalled, you know, what tips and how to stop giving away your knowledge for free. Stop that unpaid consulting. And then finally, I know we've all probably had this happen to us if you've ever had experience in sales, is getting shopped around on price. How do we prevent that from happening? And then really taking a good salesperson and making them up in the session. Again, it's July 15th from 9 a.m. to 10:30, and that'll be a Zoom meeting. The second event we're having is a two-part negotiation workshop. The first session is July 15th from 1 to 4 p.m. and this part 2 is the 22nd. And really during this session, we're going to focus in on how you create win-win outcomes in the negotiation process. During negotiations, when you have to give a concession, how do you make sure you get the other side, to also make a concession that's of equal value? More importantly, how do you define what are the walk-away points during the negotiation process? And then finally, how can you handle the difficult situation during the negotiation process confidently? This does have a fee. And if you're interested in attending either of these, what Sandler is and our training programs, I'd be happy to have a quick conversation with you. So here's also my contact information. You could also register for the events on our website, Bullet Training and Development. And that's all I have, Jacy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing information. One thing that we strive to do through Perimeter83 is align a lot of the resources that are available in the Valley. So for example, today bringing in an expert on some of the grant opportunities available and also some training opportunities. Those are things that we're trying to align to help businesses as much as we can. But again, if you ever have any information about anything, please feel free to reach out. I will supply all of the contact information for the presenters from today, as well as some information that's up and coming for some of our future events. And if you're interested in chatting more or brainstorming ways that we can help each other out, I'm definitely open to those conversations as well. So again, thank you, Lisa and Bryant, for joining us today. We really appreciate the expertise and the information about these opportunities. Let me just make sure there aren't any more questions. Nope, looks like we have some contact information going out. But yes, definitely look for future events on the Perimeter83 Eventbrite. That's where we list all of our up and coming webinars and training sessions. And with that, that will conclude everyone's presentations today. So, but yes, thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Jacy.
Of
Bye,
course.
everybody.
Thank you, Jacy.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.